Hi, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I am Charlotte, and I'm here with Quarantine Storytime, where we've been using the shelter in place due to COVID-19 to read some classic literature, namely one of the longest books in Western literature, War and Peace. And through the last few months, we've made a lot of progress, and we're nearly halfway through. And today we're going to be reading from Volume 2, Part 5, Section 15, and going all the way 15, 16, and 17. We definitely will be halfway through by Friday, so that's our goal. Pretty exciting, I know. As you all may remember, if you were here yesterday or the last few days, Natasha Rostov is secretly engaged to Andrei Bolkonsky, but lately the incorrigible scoundrel Anatole Kuragin has taken a fancy to her and convinced her, basically just by his persistent attention while her fiance has been away for so long, that she is in love with him. And this point, since he kissed her, it surprised her by kissing her and sent her a love note, she's sure that she's in love with him and is probably not in love with Andrei Bolkonsky anymore. So love Natasha, but she's a bit flighty. And Anatole's sister Helene is the wife of our good friend Pierre. And Helene, I don't trust her intentions, as she is putting them together, and she says they say it's because she just wants the best for Natasha, but I can't help but feel like she should know her brother fairly well and know his history of fooling around with young women, and that it can't quite be helpful, especially seeing as she seems to allude to the fact that she's somewhat aware of Natasha's connection with Bolkonsky. Also, Tolstoy was good to bring up the fact that Natasha had, stolen away Boris Debretskoy from Helene. Helene had treated Boris with a great deal of favor and called him her little page. And while they were in Petersburg and Natasha was there for a while, he stopped frequenting Helene as much, was spending more time with his old friend and childhood lover, Natasha. And so while the author would have us believe that maybe Helene doesn't remember that or hold it against Natasha Rostov, I believe the fact that he even brings it up is his way of reminding you that she probably secretly does, even if unconsciously has a bias against Natasha. So there's that. They're in Moscow, but it seems like it's time for the Rostovs to wrap it up and leave Moscow, and one can only hope that they will, and that being away from Moscow, Natasha can be removed from the influence of Anatole, and hopefully Prince Andrei will come back soon and they get that sorted out. But, you gotta find these things out for yourself. So without much further ado, let's jump back in. And let's see. So section 15. Returning late in the evening, Sonia came into Natasha's room and to her surprise found her still dressed asleep on the sofa. On the table next to her lay the opened letter from Anatole. Sonia picked up the letter and started reading it. She was reading and glancing at the sleeping Natasha, searching her face for an explanation of what she was reading and unable to find it. The face was gentle, meek, and happy. Clutching her chest to keep from choking, Sonia, pale and trembling with fear and agitation, sat in an armchair and dissolved in tears. How is it I didn't see anything? How could it have gone this far? Can it be she no longer loves Prince Andrei? How could she have allowed this Kuragin? He's a deceiver and a villain, that's clear. What will Nicholas, dear noble Nicholas, do when he finds out about it? So this is what her excited, determined, unnatural face meant 2 days ago, and yesterday, and today, thought Sonia. But it can't be that she loves him. She probably opened the letter not knowing whom it was from. She's probably offended. She can't do that. Sonia wiped her tears and went over to Natasha, again peering into her face. Natasha, she said, barely audibly. Natasha woke up and saw Sonia. Ah, you're back. And with the resolution and tenderness that occur in moments of awakening, she embraced her friend. But noticing the embarrassment on Sonia's face, Natasha's face expressed embarrassment and suspicion. Sonia, you read the letter? She asked. Yes, Sonia said softly. Natasha smiled rapturously. No, Sonia, I can't anymore, she said. I can't conceal it from you anymore. You know we love each other. Sonia, darling, he writes. Sonia. Sonia, as if not believing what she heard, stared all eyes at Natasha. And Bolkonsky? She asked. Ah, Sonia, if only you knew could know how happy I am, said Natasha. You don't know what love is. But Natasha, can that be all over? Natasha looked at Sonia with big, open eyes as if she did not understand her question. What, are you refusing, Prince Andrei? Asked Sonia. Ah, you don't understand anything. Don't say stupid things. Just listen, Natasha said with instant vexation. No, I can't believe it, Sonia repeated. I don't understand. How is it that you've loved a man for a whole year and suddenly you've only seen him 3 times, Natasha? I don't believe you. You're joking. To forget everything in 3 days and so... 3 days, said Natasha. It seems to me like I've loved him for 100 years. It seems to me I've never loved anyone before him and never loved anyone the way I loved him. You can't understand it, Sonia. Wait, sit here. Natasha embraced and kissed her. I've been told it happens and you've probably heard it, but only now have I experienced this love. This isn't like before. As soon as I saw him, I felt that he was my master and that I was his slave and that I couldn't help loving him. Yes, slave. What he tells me to do, I'll do. You don't understand. What am I to do? What am I to do, Sonia? Natasha said with a happy, frightened face. But think what you're doing, said Sonia. I can't leave it all like this. These secret letters. How could you let him go so far? She said with horror and revulsion she had difficulty hiding. I told you, replied Natasha, that I have no will. How can you not understand that? I love him. Then I won't let it go so far. I'll tell, cried Sonia, bursting into tears. For God's sake, what are you? If you tell, you're my enemy, Natasha began. You want me to be happy. You want them to spare us. Seeing this fear of Natasha's, Sonia wept tears of shame and pity for her friend. But what has happened between you? She asked. What has he told you? Why can't he visit our house? Natasha did not understand her question. For God's sake, Sonia, don't tell anyone. Don't torment me, Natasha pleaded. Remember, it's wrong to interfere in such things. I revealed it to you. But why these secrets? Why doesn't he come to the house? Sonia kept asking. Why doesn't he seek your hand directly? Prince Andrei gave you full freedom, if that's how it is. But I don't believe it. Natasha, have you thought what secret reasons there might be? Natasha looked at Sonia with astonished eyes. Clearly this question had presented itself to her for the first time and she did not know how to answer it. What reasons? I don't know, but it means there are reasons. Sonia sighed and shook her head mistrustfully. If there are reasons, she began, but Natasha, guessing her doubts, interrupted her fearfully. Sonia, it's impossible to doubt him. Impossible! Impossible! Do you understand? She cried. Does he love you? Love? Natasha repeated with a smile of regret at her friend's incomprehension. Haven't you read the letter? Haven't you seen him? But what if he's an ignoble man? He, an ignoble man? If you only knew, said Natasha. If he's a noble man, then he should either declare his intentions or stop seeing you. And if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I'll write to him and tell Papa, Sonia said resolutely. But I can't live without him, cried Natasha. Natasha, I don't understand you. What are you saying? Think of your father, of Nicholas. I don't need anybody. I don't love anybody but him. How dare you say he's ignoble? Don't you know that I love him, cried Natasha. Go away, Sonia. I don't want to quarrel with you. Go away, for God's sake, go away. You see how tormented I am, Natasha cried angrily in a restrainedly irritated and desperate voice. Sonia burst into sobs and ran out of the room. Natasha went to the table and without a moment's thought wrote the reply to Princess Marya, which she had been unable to write all morning. In this letter, she curtly wrote to Princess Marya that all their misunderstandings were over, that taking advantage of the magnanimity of Prince Andrei, who, on leaving, had given her freedom, she asked her to forget anything and to forget her if she was to blame before her. But that she could not be his wife. All this seemed so easy, simple, and clear to her at that moment. On Friday, the Rostovs were to go to the country, and on Wednesday, the Count went to a buyer to his estate near Moscow. On the day of the Count's departure, Sonia and Natasha were invited to a big dinner at the Kuragins, and Marya Dmitrievna brought them. At this dinner, Natasha again met with Anatole, and Sonia noticed that Natasha discussed something with him. Trying not to be heard, and all through dinner was still more agitated than before. When they returned home, Natasha was the first to begin that talk with Sonia, which her best friend was expecting. So, Sonia, here you were saying all kinds of stupid things about him, Natasha began in a meek voice, the kind of voice in which children speak when they want to be praised. He and I had a talk tonight. Well, and what then? What did he say? Natasha, I'm so glad you're not angry with me. Tell me everything, the whole truth. What did he say? Natasha became thoughtful. Ah, Sonia, if you knew him as I do. He asked me what sort of promise I had made to Bolkonsky. He was glad that it rested with me to refuse him. Sonia sighed sadly. But surely you haven't refused Bolkonsky, she asked. Maybe I even have refused him. Maybe it's all over with Bolkonsky. Why do you think so ill of me? I don't think anything. I just don't understand it. Wait, Sonia, you'll understand everything. You'll see what a man he is. Only don't think ill of either me or of him. I don't think ill of anybody. I love everybody and pity everybody. But what am I to do? Sonia would not yield to the tender tone in which Natasha addressed her. The more soft and ingratiating the expression of Natasha's face was, the more serious and stern was the face of Sonia. Natasha, she said, you asked me not to speak to you, and I didn't. You yourself began it now. Natasha, I don't trust him. Why this secrecy? Again, interrupted Natasha. Natasha, I'm afraid for you. Why be afraid? I'm afraid you'll ruin yourself, Sonia said resolutely, frightened herself at what she said. Natasha's face again showed anger. And I will. I'll ruin myself as soon as possible. It's none of your business. It will be bad for me, not for you. Leave me. Leave me alone. I hate you. Natasha, Sonia implored her fearfully. I hate you. You're my enemy forever. Natasha ran out of the room. Natasha did not speak with Sonia anymore and avoided her. With the same expression of agitated surprise and criminality, she paced the rooms, up and down one, then another, abandoning them at once. Hard as it was for Sonia, she watched her friend without taking her eyes off her. The day before the Count was to come back, Sonia noticed that Natasha sat all morning by the window in the drawing room, as if waiting for something, that she made a sign to a passing officer whom Sonia took to be Anatole. Sonia began to watch her friend still more attentively and noticed that all through dinner and in the evening Natasha was in a strange and unnatural state, responded besides the point to questions put to her, began phrases and did not finish them, laughed at everything. After tea, Sonia saw a timorous maid waiting for her by Natasha's door. She let her in and, eavesdropping at the door, learned that a letter had been brought again. And it suddenly became clear to Sonia that Natasha had some terrible plan for that night. Sonia knocked on her door. Natasha did not let her in. She's going to elope with him, thought Sonia. She's capable of anything. Tonight there was something especially pathetic and resolute in her face. She cried as she said goodbye to Uncle. Sonia recalled, yes, it's certain. She's going to elope with him. But what am I to do? Sonia wondered, recalling the signs which clearly proved to her that Natasha had some terrible intention. The Count isn't here. What am I to do? Write to Kuragin demanding an explanation from him? But who will tell him to reply to me? Write to Pierre, as Prince Andrei asked me to do in the case of misfortune? But maybe she has already indeed refused Bolkonsky. She sent a letter to Princess Marya yesterday. Uncle's not here. To tell Marya Dmitrievna, who had such faith in Natasha, seemed terrible to Sonia. But one way or another, thought Sonia, standing in the dark corridor, now or never the time has come to prove that I remember the family's kindness to me and that I love Nicholas. No, even if I don't sleep for 3 nights, I won't leave this corridor. I'll keep her back by force and not let shame fall upon their family, she thought. Section 16. Anatole had recently moved in with Dolokhov. The plan for abducting Miss Rostov had been thought out and prepared by Dolokhov several days ago, and on the day when Sonia, listening at Natasha's door, decided to keep watch on her, that plan was to be put into execution. Natasha had promised to come out to Kuragin on the back porch at 10 o'clock in the evening. Kuragin was to put her into a waiting troika and take her to the village of Kamenka, 40 miles from Moscow, where they had a defrocked priest waiting, who was to marry them. In Kamenka, a relay was ready to take them to the Warsaw Road, and from there they would go abroad by post. Anatole had a passport, travel documents, 10,000 rubles taken from his sister, and 10,000 borrowed through the intermediary of Dolokhov. 2 witnesses, Kvostikov, a former clerk, whom Dolokhov made use of for gambling, and Makarin, a retired hussar, a kind-hearted and weak man who had a boundless love for Kuragin, sat in the front room over tea. In Dólokhov's big study, its walls decorated up to the ceiling with Persian rugs, bearskins, and weapons, sat Dólokhov in a traveling jacket and boots, before an open bureau on which lay an abacus and wads of money. Anatole, in an unbuttoned uniform, paced through the room where the witnesses sat, through the study into the back room, where his French valet and others were packing the last of his belongings. Dólokhov was counting money and writing it down. "Well," he said, "you've got to give Kvostikov 2,000. "Well, give it to him," said Anatole. "Makarka, as they called Makarin, is disinterested. He'll go through fire and water for you." "Well, there, that's the end of the accounting," said Dólokhov, showing him the note. "Is it right?" "Yes, of course it's right," said Anatole, who obviously was not listening to Dólokhov, and with a smile that never left his face, he looked straight ahead. Dólokhov slammed the bureau shut and turned to Anatole with a mocking smile. "You know what? Drop it all. There's still time," he said. "Fool," said Anatole. "Stop saying stupid things. If you knew, devil knows what this is." "Drop it, really," said Dólokhov. "I mean it. Do you think it's a joke what you're up to? What, teasing again? Go to hell." "Eh?" Anatole said, wincing. "I can't keep on with your stupid jokes," and he left the room. Dólokhov smiled scornfully and condescendingly as Anatole went out. "You wait," he said behind him. "I'm not joking. I mean it. Come here. Come here." Anatole came into the room again, and trying to focus his attention, looked at Dólokhov, obviously obeying him involuntarily. "Listen to me. I'm saying it to you for the last time. Why would I joke about you? Did I thwart you? Who arranged everything? Who found the priest? Who ordered the passport? Who got the money? All me. Well, and I thank you. Do you think I'm not grateful to you?" Anatole sighed and embraced Dólokhov. "I helped you, but even so I have to tell you the truth. It's a dangerous business, and once you look at it, stupid. So you take her away. Good, but are they going to let it stop there? They'll find out you're married. You'll wind up in the criminal court." "Ah, nonsense, nonsense," Anatole began, wincing again. "I explained it to you, didn't I?" And with that special partiality which dull-witted people have when they work out some conclusion for themselves, Anatole repeated the argument he had repeated for Dólokhov 100 times. "I explained to you that I've decided. If this marriage is invalid," he said, counting off one finger, "it means I'm not answerable. If it is valid, and if it's valid, it makes no difference. Nobody abroad will know it. Well, isn't it so? And not a word, not a word, not a word. Drop it, really. You'll only bind yourself. Go to hell," said Anatole, seizing him by the hair. He went to the next room, seizing himself by the hair, went to the next room, came back again, and sat with his legs tucked under in an armchair in front of Dólokhov. "Devils knows what it is, eh? Feel how it's pounding." He took Dólokhov's hand and put it on his heart. "Ah, quel pied, mon cher, quel regard, un disait, eh? What a foot, my dear, what a look, a goddess." Dólokhov, with a cold smile and flashing his beautiful, insolent eyes, looked at him, clearly wanting to taunt him a little longer. "Well, when the money's gone, what then?" "What then, eh?" Anatole repeated, genuinely puzzled by the thought of the future. "What then? I don't know what then, but why talk nonsense?" He looked at his watch. "It's time." "Well, will you make it soon? No dawdling here," he shouted at the servants. Dólokhov put the money away and shouted for his man so as to order food and drinks served before the road, went to the room where Makarin and Kvostikov were sitting. Anatole lay on the sofa in the study, propped on his elbows, smiling pensively, whispering tenderly to himself. "Go and eat something, or drink," Dólokhov called to him from the other room. "I don't want to," Anatole replied, still smiling. "Come, Belaga's here." Anatole got up and went to the dining room. Belaga was a famous troika driver who had known Dólokhov and Anatole for 6 years already and furnished them with his troikas. More than once, when Anatole's regiment was stationed in Tver, he had taken him from Tver in the evening, brought him to Moscow by dawn, and taken him back the next night. More than once he had driven Dólokhov when he had to elude pursuit. More than once he had taken them for a ride around town with gypsies and damsels, as Belaga called them. More than once, while in their employ, he had run down folks and cabbies in Moscow, and his gentlemen, as he called them, had always helped him out. More than one horse had been overridden under them. More than once he had been beaten by them. More than once they had gotten him drunk on champagne and Madeira, which he liked, and he knew a thing or two about each of them that would have sent an ordinary man to Siberia long ago. They often invited Belaga to go carousing with them, made him drink and dance with the gypsies, and more than 1,000 of their rubles had gone through his hands. While in their service, he risked his life and his hide 20 times a year and had driven more horses to death than they had paid him rubles. But he liked them, liked their mad rides at 12 miles an hour, liked overturning other cabbies and running down Moscow pedestrians, and going at full gallop down the Moscow streets. He liked hearing the wild shouts of drunken voices behind him, "Faster, faster!" when it was impossible to go any faster. He liked giving a painful lash on the neck to a peasant, who, even without that, was trying, more dead than alive, to get out of his way. Real gentleman, he thought. Anatole and Dolokhov also liked Belaga for his masterful driving and for liking the same things they did. While others, Belaga haggled and charged 25 rubles for a 2-hour ride, and very rarely went himself, but sent the boys who worked for him. But with his gentlemen, as he called them, he always went himself and never asked anything for his work. Only when he learned through valets that there was money there would he come. Once every few months, in the morning, sober, with low bows, asked them to help him out. The two gentlemen always invited him to sit down. "Do help me out, dear Fyodor Ivanitch, or you, Your Excellency," he would say. "I've got no horses left, and it's time to go to the fair. Advance me what you can." And Anatole and Dolokhov, if they had money, would give him 1,000 rubles or 2. Belaga was a blond, squat, snub-nosed man with a red face and an especially red, thick neck, about 27 years old, with small, glittering eyes and a little beard. He was wearing a thin blue, silk-lined caftan over a winter jacket. He crossed himself towards the front door and went up to Dolokhov, holding out his small, dark hand. "My respects, Fyodor Ivanovitch," he said, bowing. "Greetings, brother. Well, there he is." "How do you do, Your Excellency?" he said to the entering Anatole, and held out his hand again. "I say, Belaga," said Anatole, placing his hand on the man's shoulders. "Do you love me or not, eh? Now give me a service. What horses have you brought, eh?" "As your messenger told me, it's your own beasts," said Belaga. "Listen then, Belaga. Do in the whole troika, but we've got it made in... Do in the whole troika, but we've got to make it in 3 hours, eh?" "If I do them in, what'll I drive with?" Belaga said, winking. "I'll smash you in the mug. This is a no laughing matter," Anatole shouted, suddenly goggling his eyes. "Who's laughing?" the coachman said with a chuckle. "There's no sparing horses for my gentlemen. We'll go as fast as they can gallop." "Eh," said Anatole. "Well, sit down." "Yes, sit down," said Dolokhov. "I'll stand, Fyodor Ivanovitch." "Nonsense, sit down and drink," said Anatole, and he poured him a big glass of Madeira. The coachman's eyes lit up at the sight of the wine. He declined out of propriety, then drank and wiped his mouth with a red silk handkerchief tucked inside his hat. "Well, do we go, Your Excellency?" "Let's see." Anatole looked at his watch. "We'll go at once. Look sharp, Belaga, eh? Will you make it?" "If we start out with good luck, why shouldn't we make it?" said Belaga. "We used to get you to Tver in 7 hours. You surely remember, Your Excellency." "You know, I once drove from Tver on Christmas Eve," said Anatole with a smile of recollection, addressing Makarin, who tenderly gazed all eyes at Kurgan. "Would you believe, Makarka, it took our breath away. We flew so fast. We drove into a wagon train, leaped over 2 wagons, eh?" "Some horses those were," Belaga went on with the same story. "I hitched up young outrunners to the chestnut." He turned to Dolokhov. "And would you believe, Fyodor Ivanitch, the beast flew for 40 miles. My hands froze. I couldn't hold on to the reins. It was so cold. I dropped the reins, 'Take 'em, Your Excellency,' and just flopped down in the sleigh. And it's not that we urged them on. There was no holding them back till we got there. The devils made it in 3 hours. Only the left outrunner dropped dead." Great company. Section 17. Anatole left the room and came back in a few moments wearing a fur coat with a silver belt and a sable hat, dashingly cocked to one side, which was very becoming to his handsome face. After looking in the mirror, he stood in front of Dolokhov in the same posture he had assumed in front of the mirror, and took a glass of wine. "Well, Fedya, farewell. Thanks for everything. Farewell," said Anatole. "Well, comrades, friends," he pondered, "of my youth, farewell." He turned to Makarin and the others. Though they were all going with him, Anatole evidently wanted to make something touching and solemn out of this address to his friends. He spoke in a slow, loud voice, and thrusting out his chest, moved one leg forward. "Everybody, take a glass. You too, Belaga. Well, comrades, friends of my youth, we've caroused, lived together, caroused, eh? When will we see each other again? I'm going abroad. We've lived. Farewell, lads. To your health. Hurrah! He said, drank his glass and smashed it on the floor. Your health, said Belaga, who drank his glass and wiped his mouth with his handkerchief. Macaron, tears in his eyes, embraced Anatole. Ah, Prince, I feel so sad parting with you, he said. Let's go, cried Anatole. Belaga started for the door. No, wait, said Anatole. Close the door. We have to sit down. There. They closed the door and sat down. Well, now we're off, lads, said Anatole, getting up. The valet Joseph handed Anatole a bag and a sword, and they all went out to the front hall. And where's the fur coat, said Dólokhov. Hey, Ignashka, go to Matryonovna, ask for her sable coat. I've heard how people elope, Dólokhov said, winking. She'll come running out more dead than alive, and whatever she had on at home. If there's any dawdling, there'll be tears in Papa and Mama, and she'll get cold and go back. You must wrap her in a fur coat at once and carry her to the sleigh. The valet brought a woman's fox coat. Fool, the sable one, I told you. Hey, Matryoshka, the sable one, he shouted so loudly that his voice echoed far off through the rooms. A beautiful, thin, and pale gypsy girl with smiling, dark, black eyes and black curly hair of a bluish sheen and a red shawl ran over with a sable coat over her arm. Here, I'm not sorry. Take it, she said, obviously fearful before her master and sorry about the coat. Dólokhov, without answering her, took the coat, threw it on Matryoshka, and wrapped her up. Like this, said Dólokhov, and then like this, he said, and raised the collar around her head, leaving it slightly open in front of her face. And then, see, like this, and he moved Anatole's face to see the opening of the collar from which Matryoshka's brilliant smile could be seen. Well, goodbye, Matryoshka, said Anatole, kissing her. My carousing's finished here. Greetings to Stayoshka. Well, goodbye, Matryoshka. Wish me happiness. Well, Prince, God grant you happiness, Matryoshka said to Anatole with her gypsy accent. At the porch stood two troikas, held by two fine-looking coachmen. Belaga got in the first troika and raised his eyebrows high, unhurriedly sorted out the reins. Anatole and Dólokhov got in with him. Makarin, Kvostikov, and the valet got into the other troika. Ready? Asked Belaga. We're off, he cried, winding the reins around his hands, and the troika raced thudding down Novitsky Boulevard. Whoa, get up now, whoa! The cries of Belaga and the young fellow sitting on the box were all that was heard. On Arbat Square, the troika snagged a carriage. Something cracked. There was a shout, and the troika flew along the Arbat. Having driven up and down the length of Podnovinsky, Belaga began reining in and, turning back, stopped the horses at the intersection of Old Konyushenya. The coachman jumped down to hold the horses by the bridle. Anatole and Dólokhov went off down the sidewalk. Coming to the back gate, Dólokhov whistled. A whistle answered him, following that, a maid ran out. Come into the yard, or you'll be seen. She'll come out at once, she said. Dólokhov remained by the gate. Anatole followed the maid into the yard, turned the corner, and ran up to the porch. Gavrilo, Marya Dmitrievna's enormous footman, Anatole. To the mistress, if you please, the footman said in a bass voice, barring the way back. What mistress? Who are you? Anatole asked in a breathless whisper. If you please, I was ordered to bring you in. Kuragin, come back, shouted Dólokhov. We're betrayed, come back. By the back gate he had stopped. Dólokhov was struggling with the yard porter, who had tried to lock the gate after Anatole went in. With a final effort, Dólokhov shoved the porter away, and as Anatole ran out, seized him by the arm, pulled him through the gate, and ran back with him to the troika. And that's where we'll stop for now. Sorry, it's a little short, but I must dash off. That was ridiculous. First of all, those guys are scoundrels. Second of all, I'm so glad, hopefully, Sonia told Marya Dmitrievna or something. I'm so glad that they haven't carried her away. I don't have hope that it won't be tried again, but I am happy that at least for now it's been stopped. And that's all I have to say. I must dash. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay just. The links to things you can get involved in and petitions to sign are still in the end of the videos. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye. Bye.